What's up guys, this is Sid, and today I wanted to make a video on Kashtira Unicorn and Ghost Reaper. I mean, they're both very similar in what they do because they both look at the opponent's extra deck and then take a card away from it. It's just that for Ghost Reaper, obviously it's a going second card where you have to play the corresponding extra deck monster. And with Unicorn, I mean, it's pretty much only really good going first. I mean, it can be okay going second, and you don't really need to play the extra deck card, and it only banishes one copy of the card, whereas Ghost Reaper, it's all the copies, but Unicorn banishes face down, whereas Ghost Reaper banishes face up. So sometimes Ghost Reaper is not effective enough because your opponent can just recycle back the card. Whereas with Unicorn, there is pretty much no recycling. So yeah, I really wanted to dive deep into these cards and try to figure out just how good Unicorn and the Ghost Reaper really are in this format, because obviously ban list, I mean, changed pretty much everything, and the Kashtira engine is looking very, very hot right now. But yeah, anyways, before we go any further, you already know the drill. I really appreciate if you could smash the like and subscribe button, and also check out my Blue-Eyes and Crystron spreadsheet, which are on my website, yacineygo.com. The very first link of the description box below. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, so first things first, Unicorn, like I said, only really good going first, but it's very easy to search because there's Kashtira Fenrir as well as the Kashtira Field Spell, which can all search Unicorn. Fenrir into Unicorn is a little less relevant, but you can still tribute summon the Unicorn on top of the Fenrir and another monster, because you haven't used your normal summon yet, so as long as the normal summon is not a problem for you, that is completely fine. So yeah, Unicorn is not necessarily just a one-of, even if you only play one copy of it. There's always more ways of accessing it, and also when you get Unicorn, unlike with Ghost Reaper, you get something else in the form of Kashtira Birth as an added bonus. So this card, I guess you can even argue, is kind of like a brick, but it does make the card significantly better because on the resolution of your opponent activating a spell card or spell effect, you banish exactly 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard while you control a Kashtira monster. And this is very good in case your opponent goes, okay, first action, activate Fiendsmith Engraver, search Tract, activate Tract, and then search the Luri effect because it's a mandatory effect on the Chainlink one. And then you can go, okay, Chainlink 2, Kashtira Birth, banish Engraver, banish Luri, and banish, Engraver, Tract, and Luri. And just like that, your opponent's 1-card combo got completely nullified. So the Fiendsmith engine plays very, very hard into Kashtira Birth. The only, I guess, kind of issue is if you didn't get a hand shot on turn 1, and your opponent goes Tract into Luri, then there's only 2 cards in the graveyard, and Kashtira Birth really has to banish exactly 3 cards, not up to 3 cards. Even for Memento, there is a somewhat similar application where if you do not get a hand shot, your opponent can go, okay, Memento Bone Party, destroy a Memento monster, summon like Tatsuno Toshigo or Anguish or whatever, and then there's only Bone Party and 1 Memento monster in the grave, so there's nothing to banish. But if your opponent goes Memento Fusion, or if you got like hand shot, and then your opponent goes Bone Party, then there's 3 cards in grave, so Kashtira Birth has full value. And for Memento Fusion, there's always going to be a minimum of 3 cards in your grave once your opponent uses this, so it's going to have, like, literally maximum value. Sometimes Kashtira Unicorn is not necessarily going to be great against your opponent, but Kashtira Birth is going to be great, or the other way around. And obviously, there's also the Memento Field Spell that your opponent could also use in order to trigger the Kashtira Birth to banish a bunch of cards. Now, obviously, I just spent, like, a whole minute talking about how Kashtira Birth is, but that just show even further how Unicorn is, because, I mean, how good it is, because obviously Birth is an extension of Unicorn. Now, let's take a look at the extra deck targets that are extremely good to banish off of both Unicorn and Reaper, because at this point, it's basically the same card. The Birth into, like, banishing of the monsters was, like, the only real distinction. So yeah, you can banish the Requiem, which is very good if it's just a one-of off of a Unicorn, or if it's like a 2-of, then Ghost Reaper is better than Unicorn. Same thing with DSC Ray, but usually I want to say like this card is less good to banish off of like Unicorn unless your opponent goes onto like a sequence, and then you can randomly hit him with like a Ghost Reaper or Unicorn if you can force your opponent to commit into like a worse line. And also one interesting thing about Ghost Reaper is that you can kind of use it as a board breaker sometimes. Like your opponent has the Fiendsmith and Paradise in grave, and then on your own turn you top deck Reaper, you can use Reaper, declare DSC Ray, and then your opponent loses it, and then you no longer have to worry about the interruption of the Paradise in the graveyard. And obviously Reaper against Duo Drive when you're going second, it feels really nasty because then there's only 1 detonator, 0 Duo Drive. It's borderline impossible to lose the grind game now. You're gonna have to put in a lot of effort to lose to like 1 single detonator, and no recursion, no field spell, well, at least until we get Star Ryzeal. So I think that Reapering Duo Drive has never been better than right now, just because the detonator is at 1. It's getting really tricky to play with only 1 copy of this card and almost no field spells. skills. If you're playing against Ryzeal Fiendsmith, there's something very interesting that you can do whenever they make Moon of the Close Sky or Evilstorm Excite on Knight. You can Reaper the Requiem there, or you can also just Reaper the Excite on Knight if you're actually just scared of the card. But it doesn't really make any sense because Excite on Knight can only be used while you control less cards than your opponent, and Ghost Reaper can only be used when you control less monsters than your opponent. So it actually just doesn't make sense. If anything, you can Unicorn Excite on Knight very conveniently, but Reapering Excite on Knight will basically never come up. And also, I really do not recommend looking to Ghost Reaper for the Malice matchup because the Hearts of Cryptor can recycle back any banished Malice card into the deck or extra deck and then banish one card on the field, so you're almost helping them out even though you're not triggering their effects because they can't special summon themselves back because they weren't properly summoned. But Unicorn against Malice is basically Exodia because they only play one of each Link monsters and the extra deck space is super tight. So if you can start by banishing White Binder, which is usually the better one, then you're already in a very good position, and after that you can look into banishing Red Ransom or the Hearts of Cryptor in case your opponent basically just has to go for an OTK line. But I want to say the Red Ransom is probably going to get even better over time when we're going to be getting the new quick play spell card. Banishing the Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon as well as the Blue-Eyes Link one is insane against Blue-Eyes because this makes them lose like a bunch of cards in the from the extra deck, especially if they play Crimson Dragon. Like you make them lose like the Double Spirit, the Spirit Ultimate, and then Crimson Dragon and whatever else they summon off of that. So that's a lot of collateral damage off of Reaper, but off of Unicorn, then this is usually a 2 of, and this is also a 2 of, so it's not as great, unfortunately. I want to say though, if you got a hand shot on turn 1, then you can definitely Unicorn this, and then Unicorn the second copy, or Unicorn the Link one twice. But I usually try to Unicorn like the card that hurts the most, depending on like where I got a hand shot. Like if I got hand shot on turn 1 and it's a monster effect that triggers the Unicorn, then I can banish like a 2 of. Otherwise, I just banish a bunch of 1 ofs. That's usually what I and other people do. It really does depend because this card, sorry, is a little more reactive, of course, than Ghost Reaper that just you can use pretty much almost at any moment going second. Like if your opponent plays a board breaker deck, then Kashtira Unicorn is naturally going to be significantly worse. And another thing to take into consideration is that if you're playing, let's say, a deck like Kashtira Fiendsmith, just because you have Unicorn, Fenrir, and Birth with like Caesar and stuff, doesn't necessarily make you safe, because then you can just randomly lose to like one single board breaker almost. It's a little unfortunate. Anyways, for the other really good targets for Unicorn, this is one of my favorite plays, and you can really win a lot of games if you do that. I did cover it in one of my videos, but because of the fact that the Ryzeal deck basically has to rely on 7th Tachyon and 7th Ascension for consistency, now when you Unicorn the Masquerade, you're basically shutting down half of their starters, because they've got 13 starters if they play 2 Sword, 2 Ice, 2 X, and then 1 Bonfire, so that's 7. And then the 3 7th Tachyon, 3 7th Ascension, so that's 6 extra starters. They will lose like a 20-something% consistency level if you just Reaper, the Unicorn the Masquerade. And also on their own turn, you can just Reaper the, Unicorn the Detonator. I keep saying Reaper. And it's just gonna be checkmate. So no Detonator, no Masquerade, no 7th Tachyon, nothing at all. Their deck is super inconsistent and has basically 0 win conditions off of just 1 Unicorn and you getting hand trapped. Like, you basically benefit off of getting hand trapped, which is the best feeling ever. Against Memento, I wouldn't say it's great. Like, if you Reaper the Creation King, for example, I mean, they can still recycle it back with Acheron when I believe it is destroyed. It recycles back any Memento card from the banished or graveyard, I think. So that's a little unfortunate. I mean, it includes monsters, so yeah, they can get back the Creation King and then just summon it again and then keep looping their graveyard effects over and over. That's not the best, but you can Unicorn the Twin Dragon, which is typically a 1-of in the extra deck, because the extra deck space in the Fiendsmith and Goblin versions of Memento are very tight, but in pure Memento, the extra deck space is not tight, so they could even play 2 Twin Dragons and then just completely play around the Unicorn just naturally. And also they can play 3 Creation King. So Unicorning Creation King twice might not even happen, because this is at the very least a 2-of, since they're trying to send the second copy with the first one anyways. So even that could be a consideration. If they only play 2, you can still Unicorn the second copy, so that they will pretty much never be able to search the field spell unless they link this card off and then banish it. But then it means that they can't revive it back with the boss monster. But then again, if they're playing going second against this and all you really have is Unicorn, then you're probably losing anyways, unless you also have Birth and they played into it by using Bone Party or Memento Fusion. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Memento is very good right now. It's a very good deck. Obviously, just won the YCS with Pascal piloting it. So if you are looking into more options, for beating this deck, I think Unicorn can still be a great one. But especially because of Kashtira Birth. It's actually a better card than Unicorn for this matchup, very specifically Otherwise, I want to say usually Unicorn, just looking at the extra deck and also giving you information. This is pretty massive. Now, finally, Unicorn can be good against, like, you know, generic staples overall, like Typhon, SP. They're typically played as one-ofs. The Tenpai level 7 monster, it's not that it's a random card because only Tenpai can play it, but every now and then they might maybe play one copy of it because the Tenpai engine is like so minimalistic, because it's not even a Tenpai Dragon deck at this point. It's more like a handshops, like slash non-engine deck featuring Tenpai Dragon cards, conveniently. And also Typhon and SP, they're not really worth unicorning if you're playing against like Fire King, because it's a Pot of Extravagance deck that plays like 3 of everything, so you're not even gonna make them lose anything, unfortunately. Unless they get unlucky with Extravagance, if they do choose to use it after hand-shopping you with Unicorn and stuff like that. And if it's just like a 2-of, then maybe you Unicorn the Typhon twice, or you can Unicorn like the random 1-ofs like Salamangreat Elmirage, and that can make them break a little more often, but they're most likely never gonna be going over into them. Or you can Reaper, I don't know, I mean, or Unicorn like Hita or Princess and stuff like that, but they probably play multiple copies. So against decks where the extra deck space is not super tight, obviously do not expect Unicorn to put in that work because it's probably going to be a little mediocre. I can't really think of other decks where Unicorn and Reaper are like super insane because a lot of decks have a lot of accretion. But Unicorn, I mean, it's always going to be fine against like practically everything, especially if it's a handshop deck. But if it's a board breaker deck, then again, you are scared of Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, Ultimate Slayer potentially if you end on like an Xyz monster, because then Aggregator can just negate the Unicorn, stuff like that. Regeki is like randomly good against the Kashtira cards. Anyways, that's it for this video right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know how you feel about Kashtira, Unicorn, and Ghost Reaper in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.